it is very possible that the subject that, or the topic that I'm going to elaborate on this afternoon, this evening, is slightly complicated. I'll try to make it as simple as I can, and the more I talk or present my ideas in America, I find out that actually the most interesting thing that can happen here is if I won't talk too much, then you'll have a chance to ask questions, and then we will develop an interesting dialogue. Zionism is a very confusing concept. Quite hard to understand. When you think about the idea that 3 years after the liberation of Auschwitz, Israel ethnically cleansed, expelled between 70 to 80% of the Palestinian population. It should take you by surprise, because you really expect that when people suffer so much, the last thing that they would like to do is to inflict pain on others, and certainly on people who had nothing to do with their own suffering. Obviously, the European Jews didn't suffer by the hands of the Palestinians. They suffered by the hands of Europeans. And there are a few ways to explain it. And it's not down to me to explain it. What Zionists, there is more than one unfortunately, tend to say is that when you are abused, you happen to become the abuser. I'm happy to go with it, but it means that we are dealing with people who are mentally disturbed. You know, if you bring a rapist to court, and then he would bring his cousin, who testified that the boy was abused 30 years ago, he may get away with it for being mentally disturbed by recent events. Another possibility is to assume, which is true actually, that it's actually not the same Jews who suffer in the Holocaust and those who ethnically cleansed the Palestinians. But this is very, very strange, because when the Israelis want to flatten countries, they use the Holocaust. When they are blamed for being abusers, they would dismiss it as their own past. So it's, again, not really coherent or consistent. But there are some others very confusing elements with Zionism and Jewish history. One would expect that after the suffering of Jews in Europe, they would look into their past, try to understand what happened there, and would be very careful. For instance, they would make sure that the capitalists do not fund wars. They would stay away from governments and junctions of power. And as it happened, they learned nothing. Look at AIPAC. AIPAC is the strongest lobby on the land. Look at Britain. In Britain, Tony Blair took Britain to an illegal war, you know that war very well, when he was funded by his number one fundraiser was Lord Levi. Chaim Saban, the chief donator for the Democratic Party, was quoted in the New York Times a month ago, saying that in order to influence America, you have to do three things. You have to fund the parties. The party is not a party. You just fund all of them, which is a great idea. You know, why do you have to decide? They're not that expensive. You all realize they're not expensive. You realize that to buy a F-15, if you want to buy a F-15, I like to fly kind of fast. And, you know, if you want to fly a F-15, if you want to buy one, it costs a lot of money. Even a tank is a very expensive thing. Your politicians are very cheap. You take them to 2-3 tours to Israel, you show them the Negev, you know, you put them in Hilton 5 stars. Hilton probably give kind of a good price because it's a Zionist cause. You bring them back, you buy them a swimming pool, and they're yours. They sign, they're friends of Israel, they do whatever you want. It's nothing. It's really cheap. It's much cheaper than running an army. A few months later, they would support a war against Iraq, against Iran. It was very easy to turn America into an Israeli mission force. So Chaim Saban says, be a fundraiser, control the media. This is very easy. And control think tanks. Now, think tanks are very important because through think tanks you can define your needs, the needs of the American people. You, for instance, you are convinced that you need oil, but this is not necessarily the case. Israel wants you to need oil because then it becomes a strategic asset within a certain doctrine. But some other countries are now looking into other possibilities. Now, going back, you would expect that after the Holocaust, Chaim Saban would keep quiet and wouldn't tell the Goyim, listen, we will control your politician, we will control your mania, and we will define your desires and interests. Why Chaim Saban behaves so foolishly? He's not exactly an idiot. He knows how to make money. He's a billionaire. I don't think that he knows how to make good films, but I'm not a film critic today. Why Chaim Saban makes the same mistake? Why AIPAC and Jewish American Committee are so loud? Why they promote or advocate war against Iran publicly? A war that may turn into a nuclear disaster that will leave millions of people dead and may even turn this planet into an ash cloud. I'm sure that everyone in this room, and I'm taking you here into a intellectual trick. I'm gonna trick you now. I'm saying it in advance, so nobody can blame me from being dishonest. You all realize, for instance, that if Israel would launch tomorrow a nuclear attack on Iran, and as you may know, according to the Times, there are at the moment Israeli nuclear submarines stationed in the Persian Gulf. If Israel launches such an attack, this may lead into a total disaster, a world war, a nuclear battle. We cannot really speculate what will be the consequences, but it is very possible that when something as such happens, people all over the world would start to say, you know what? Hitler was right. Can you see such a scenario? Yes, you can. Now, just the fact, this was an hypothetical scenario, obviously. You can all see such a scenario, and you don't want it to happen, and you may even try to do whatever you can to prevent it. But unfortunately, and this is what I will try to explore today, unfortunately, the Israelis cannot see such a scenario with such a devastating consequences, and this is why they are so dangerous. Why do I say that they cannot see such a scenario? Because when they flattened Lebanon in 2006, they couldn't see the consequences. They couldn't. They couldn't see that the world would be outraged, and the tide would change. When they flattened Gaza 18 months ago, with the support of 94% of the Israeli Jewish population, they were happy. I don't know if you take a minute to watch YouTube, you can find Israeli having picnic on the hills around Gaza, drinking wine, seeing their next door neighbors annihilated. This is something that didn't happen in Nazi Germany. This is something that is happening in the Jewish state. In the Jewish state, 94% of the Jewish population say, we want to kill them. This is unheard of. Three weeks ago, Israel sent its best trained military commando against a flotilla that was about to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza. On board, they had peace activists carrying books, paper, medicines, cement. It wasn't a police force. It wasn't people who were trained to deal with civilians. It was a unit that was trained to kill. And they killed. They killed 9. They didn't kill. They executed. And again, write Mavir Marmara execution, and you will see Israeli soldier executing peace activists on board. The Israeli obviously argue that they were terrorists, because the logic is very simple. Once you are hit by a Jewish bullet, you become a terrorist. That's the way it works. But they didn't find any guns, any weapons. Now, the execution wasn't a local mistake on the ground. One soldier goes crazy. It was a decision that was taken by a democratically elected government. In this government, we have quite a few generals and Israeli chief of staff. In fact, the deputy minister was an ex-chief of staff. The Israeli call it the defense minister, but you know, it's not exactly defense to attack people to kill on a regular basis. They knew what they were doing. They knew exactly what unit they were sending, and they let them in with real, live ammunition. They gave them, they sent them with a clear capacity to murder. And it wasn't just 9 people, it's 9 peace activists and another 40 or 50 injured, some of them severely. And it is possible that we have even some missing. There are reports of people that were thrown out of the deck. Now, the Israelis thought that they would get away with it. Obviously, they didn't. They didn't get away with the Goldstone report of their Operation Gaza, Operation Kaslit. And if they really wanted to maintain a siege in Gaza, this siege was broken a few hours after the raid. So they make mistakes time after time. This is very alarming when people make so many mistakes. They don't even serve their cause. Why it is very alarming? Because they have between 600 to 800 nuclear bombs. And considering the fact that they are engaged in a territorial conflict, they don't need atomic bomb. When you have a territorial conflict with your neighbor, you're not going to use an atomic bomb, because it may have some effect on your own plants, you know, even small atomic bomb. If the Israeli cares about Sderot, Ashkelon, or even Tel Aviv, they're not going to nuke Gaza, or Nablus, or even Damascus. So why do they need so many atomic bombs? For the rest of the world, for Iran, for Turkey, the Greek can become anti-Semitic any minute. Even America is not behaving at the moment. We need a lot of atomic bomb, because the entire world is against us. But the rest of the world is actually humanity. So basically, it set itself against humanity. We have a small, little nation that set itself against humanity and humanism. How that happens? I'm working on it for 10 years, and I couldn't come with a clear answer. I have something in mind now. I'm going to share it with you, because this is how I'm going to end my new book. It's slightly complicated, but if you find it difficult, because I talk about it because I myself don't know how to formulate it. Harvey already told me that it's impossible to understand. Temporality. It's all about temporality. History. History is our capacity or art of revisiting our past. What does it mean to revisit our past? We, in fact, need history because we want to shape our future in the light of our understandings of the past. So if I made a mistake in the past, I really want to believe that in the future I'll be cleverer. So to a certain extent, the past shapes our future. This is easy to understand. But at the same time, our vision of the future can also shape our past. So if I go back to this Hitler exercise, our understanding that the Jews, our understanding that Hitler, oh my God, again, cut, editing. Our understanding that Israel, I had 2 flights today, no oxygen. It's impossible what I'm doing here. Altitude. Our understanding that a Israeli nuclear attack against Iran may change the vision of the past is something that we can live with. This is exactly what history is all about. This is why some people go to university to study history. Because if history wouldn't be a dynamic, vivid form of knowledge, we wouldn't need historians. Don't worry, you want to know about Greek, just learn Greek. No, we can still change. Read the Greek history in the light of our current understandings. Interestingly enough, this is history. This is humanism. Humanism is the capacity to revise the past. History, revisionism, is the elementary part of our human needs. It's crucial for our understanding of humanism. It's crucial for our understanding of reconciliation. Because if you punch me, not you, but I wouldn't, if you punch me a second ago, I can behave like the IDF and nuke you, or to behave like a good Christian and turn my other cheek. I mean, good Christian. I didn't see many Christian in Bush administration that did it. And they're supposed to be good Christians. I start to think sometimes that it's all about circumcision. Sorry. I just asked to get mine back, my foreskin, to get it back from the Israeli. Because I found out that they have a place where they modify into Israeli soldiers. This is how they win the wars. They do it in the place called the Jurassic Park. It's a scientific park. Anyway, This was a comic relief. Jason, you can cut it out later. More water, yeah? So, shockingly enough, there is no such a thing as Jewish history. Have you heard about Shlomo Zand? Yes. Shlomo Zand wrote a very interesting book. It came out in English, I think Verso. It came out in English a year ago. It is called The Invention of the Jewish People. And he proves behind doubt that it's a fantasy. Interestingly enough, from between the 1st century and the beginning of the 19th century, there was not a single Jewish history text written. And as you probably realize, it's not a problem, it has nothing to do with illiteracy. Jews were literate all the way through. They were famous for being literate, but they didn't write history. Why didn't they write history? Because they didn't need history. Why they didn't need history? Because for an Orthodox Jew, everything is in the Bible. You get all your answers. You have a problem, your wife is not willing to do something that you saw on YouTube and you go to the rabbi and he looks into the Talmud and says, "Hey, what you have to do, you have to bring, yeah. So they didn't write history. In fact, they didn't write history, there was very little science, there was very little contribution to humanity. But I'm talking now about history. There was no history. The springs of the nations, 19th century, all the European nations invent their past more or less, and so do the Jews. They invent the exile. They have to invent the exile. They have to invent the exile. Why do they invent the exile? Because they have to explain why there are so many Jews all over the place, except in Palestine. So they invented exile. It's easy, isn't it? Shlomo Zand comes and says, no, there was no exile. The Roman didn't expel anyone. They didn't have time for it. If they didn't like people, they just killed them. The Roman Navy didn't have the capacity to stand there in Acre or in Jaffa or in Gaza and to say, "Hey, Moshe, where do you want to go? You want to go to Ledo to run a tourist agency for naughty Jews?" There was no exile. And the Jews do not form a continuum. And all the Jews that we see around the world, if they are white, they are probably Khazarians. If they are Sephardi Jews, they are probably Berber, who converted into Judaism, then into Islam, then invaded Spain, and then found Judaism again. And when they talk about going back to their promised land, they are just bullshitting. Regardless of the fact that you cannot go to a place 2,000 years later. Can you go to the land of your forefathers in Europe? Americans, or or India, or I don't know. Where? Palestine? I know Saudi, but I don't know where your forefathers are from. Saudi, yeah, probably. Actually, they are there, so you don't have a problem. But I guess, Daddy, I'm back. No, you can't. Try to think. Do you think that a bunch of Italians arriving in London, at London Piccadilly Circus tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning, with caterpillars starting to flatten the central London would get away with it? After 2 days, somebody in London mayor office understand that they weren't authorized to do it, and they come to them and say, what are you doing? And they don't even speak English. And then they bring an Italian translator and say, oh, this was the land of our forefathers. We are Italian, they were Romans. They will get arrested. Or mobbed and lynched. They wouldn't get away with it. The Jews got away with it quite easily in Palestine. Quite easily. And this is shocking, because they exploited it. In 48, when young Israel expelled 80%, 700, 800 Palestinians, 800,000, sorry. Yeah, sorry. The world applauded. In 67, the same. Thousands, tens of thousands. And the world kept quiet. The Israelis could stop there. Not that it would change for me. I would definitely support the right of return anyway. But for them, it just increased their appetite. And apparently, they made a mistake. Because people start to understand now what happened in Palestine. And it's not just in Israel. It is very hard for us to say where the Israeli stops, the Zionist start where the Zionist stops and the Jew starts. Israel is the Jewish state. Every crime that it commits is committed in the name of the Jewish people. I wouldn't go as far as saying that every Jew agree with Israel. But from its perspective, these are crimes that are committed in the name of the Jewish people. And as it happened, institutionally at least, world Jewry supports Israel. There are just very few sporadic Jewish bodies that oppose Israel, and in fact the only serious collective that I can see that is ideologically consistent are the Torah Jews that actually oppose Israel in the name of the Bible. I definitely don't take J Street very seriously. I see it as a fig leaf operation, and it will be exposed soon. Why they get everything wrong? Because they do not have history. People who possess a real vivid notion of history and understand our past in terms of revisionism, and I deliberately use the word revisionism because they hate revisionists. So I use it. Yes, I support every form of history revisionism, including Holocaust revisionism. People who understand history in terms of revisionism understand the notion of causality, they understand the consequences of their action. So they would understand that if they shred the Holy Land with this megalomaniac, humongous walls, this close any prospect of hope. People who possess a real vivid notion of history don't send seal divers against humanitarian activists. They understand the consequences. Try to think of yourself. You had some quarrels with your partners. You do understand that if you take a shotgun and take the knee, it will be very hard to reconcile after. You understand it? It is simple, isn't it? But somehow, in Israel, they don't understand it. They don't understand that starving 1.5 million Palestinians is something that closes any possibility of reconciliation, or will make it very, very difficult. Humanism is primarily making friends with our human condition. It is the understanding that to be is to be bounded to temporality, to understand that we live in a kind of strange present that we cannot define. Our past is drifting away, and all is left for us is hope, future. And I want to end with the most devastating thing I can say. I like to be devastating, and I'm good at it. What happened in the Mavi Marmara is not just a war crime. It's not a war crime. Not even a severe war crime. What happened in the Mavi Marmara was killing Christ again. Why? It's not the same people. There is no continuum between the ancient Israelites and the Israeli SEAL divers or the Israeli government. There is no continuum biology, race. It's not the same people. It is the same ideology. It is a crude assault on goodness. Christ, the kindest of all men, could treat people blindness, and the Mavi Marmara was carrying medicines. It's the same. The similarity is clear. Why is it the same ideology? Why is it the same ideology? Because it was inevitable. Zionism was there to relaunch the ancient Israelite project. I think that I spoke about it once in Denver. Just because before I joined the Israeli army, they found some bones in the Judea desert. They decided that these were the bones of Bar Koziva, the Jewish rebel from, I don't know, the first century. Yeah, Bar Kokhba. And they buried him or them or whatever, these bones, may even be in a donkey. They buried these bones in an IDF military ceremony. So they turned him into an Israeli soldier, and practically speaking, I joined Bar Kokhba's army. They created a continuum between the ancient Israelite and the current Israeli state. So, they were successful at it. And it's not surprising at all that the ideology and the lethal barbarism was relaunched as well, came to life. And this is what we see now. this is our only planet so far. I don't know, unless I didn't read the news and NASA just managed to find another one. We better start to take care of it. I do realize that quite a few of you are concerned with global warming. I would say that Israel and its supportive lobbies are far more dangerous. It's an imminent, immediate danger. That's it.
Gilad, reminding you about in the call when
What was it?
when I said someone, I asked nationality.
Yeah, okay, so we will.
So, I do have a mic too, and I'm filming this, so I'd like to be able to get the audio for the questions. So if you do have a question, just raise your hand.
Yeah, if anyone want to.
Can I ask you like a personal question about your own journey, so
Yeah.
to speak?
Yeah.
So you're in the IDF, and you mentioned before you were in Lebanon in 1982.
Yeah.
When did you start changing, so to speak? How did you evolve into the position that where you are today?
I spoke about it last year when I was here, and actually Jason took a very good footage of it. There is a very detailed a paper of mine about this journey. No, I'm going to answer you, but kind of I'm going to make it very brief because some of the people here heard it. It's called the Primacy of the Ear. I talk about music and politics. However, I wasn't exactly a hero. I know that I've already read about myself that I was a Marines and pilot and a SEAL diver. Bollocks, nothing. Most of my military service, I was a musician. And at a certain stage, I decided that I don't even want to entertain soldiers. However, I make it very short. In my last days in the war itself, in '82, in June, I was taking care of a lot of wounded people. There was a phase where I come from a Zionist background, and I really made an effort to be a good soldier. And I saw something that disturbed me a lot. But I think that these are things that everyone who participates in war sees. In the last days of my compulsory service in the Israeli army, I was in the Israeli Air Force Orchestra. And we were sent to Lebanon to entertain IDF soldiers. And we were performing in Ansar. Ansar was a concentration camp for Lebanese and Palestinians, basically freedom fighters. They were not recognized as prisoners of war. It was there and then when I started to understand the scale, the measures of the Palestinian suffering. It was there when I started to understand the Palestinian cause. Along the way, all the refugee camps, I started to ask myself, where are all those people from? You have to understand, in Israel we didn't know really about the Palestinian being expelled. We were told that they left voluntarily, that they were invited to live by the Arab countries. A lot of nonsense. We didn't know about all those massacres. We knew about one massacre, about the USA. And still, Israelis do not know. This is very interesting, because when you hear Holocaust experts, academics, they always talk about the magmatic nature of anti-Semitism. They would say, it was so great in Germany. We were part of the German people, and then out of a sudden, they turned against us. We hear it now. American Jews say, what happened? Why? Why is it magmatic? Because they lack the capacity to look at historical events. They lack the capacity to look at Balfour Declaration, for instance, being there and a strategy that pulled America into World War I. And I can extend about it because not many people know about it. Why did I change and all my peers didn't? This is a big question, and it bothers me a lot. And I think that it has a lot to do with the fact that I'm a musician. When I was 17, I met Charlie Parker for the first time. Not in person. I heard his music, I rushed to the shop, I bought the album, and was shocked to find out that he was black. Because until that point, we were told that everything good is Jewish. So I said, it must be Ethiopian. And then John Coltrane was black, and Sonny Rollins. And it was then and there, in my late teens, where I realized that actually, rather than dying in an Israeli war, I would prefer to jam with Elvin Jones. And it was a very interesting journey for me. And this journey is not over yet, where I started to learn what was done, how deceptive is the Zionist and the Jewish tribal discourse is, and I'm still working on it. Yeah. The primacy of the year is where I can't go into details. Question? Yeah, just a second. I think we want to document your resistance.
So you were saying that the thing that you're most mentally bothered by is trying to understand how the Israelis can do what they've done.
How the Israelis?
Would have the chutzpah to do what they've done. The absolute inhumanity to do all these things to these people. And it seems to me that it's actually rather simple. Maybe I'm not understanding something. I'm an ex-Mormon, so I know what it's like to be among the chosen people.
Yeah.
And I know how it makes people's heads.
Are you a self-hating Mormon or just ex?
Oh no, self-hating.
Good. Yeah. No. It's a big difference. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So I understand because when I go back to Utah,
Yeah.
they do things that no sane person would do outside of the land of Zion.
Yeah.
In terms of thinking, the way they do things and everything. So it seems to me that it's actually simple. They got away with it from 1926, 1929 on, when they started killing the first Arabs. They got away with it in 1947, in September, when they killed a friend of the Jews, Wallenberg. They got away with it, they got away with it, they got away with it.
Yeah.
So to them, it's like, this is history, this is recent history, they think it should continue.
No, I agree.
And your own personal story, it seems to me, is that somehow you managed to slip out of the influence of only talking to other Jews, only talking to other Zionists. But the reality of it is, like you say with that poll of 94% of the Israelis supporting Operation Cast Lead, that the Jewish citizens of Israel do not read newspapers from other countries, do not pay attention to anything outside of that. And if they ever do, it's like a Hindu philosopher once said that.
I agree. I agree.
That they only look at it from the one standpoint of how can we get away with it.
I totally agree with this point, and they definitely get away with a lot. However, why, and I understand it obviously, why I still try to raise this question, and I'm slightly confused, because the narrative of their suffering is at the center of their self-realization. So for instance, if you're so concerned with your own pain, you would expect an element of compassion. And obviously, we don't see anything as such. Even when there is a kind of a compassion there, it is symbolic and deceptive. So when we see all those Jewish groups that work for Israel, on anti-Zionist Jews that work against Zionism, let's say, always they say, we are against, the first thing that they would say, we are against any form of anti-Semitism, as if anti-Semitism is a Palestinian problem. No, Palestinians have never been anti-Semitic. No, they want to go back to their land, to their houses, to the orchards, to the fields. So, the only way to understand this Jewish progressive support of Palestine is as a Zionist fig leaf. It's bad news. The good news, however, is that until 4 or 5 years ago, there was a complete hegemony of these Jewish groups within the Palestinian Solidarity movement, which is very strange for many reasons. Part of the reason is very easy to say, hey, you are a Jew, you know, it's great, you talk against Israel, we can use it. And this has changed, and it especially changed now with the flotilla. Why it changed? Because, and it's not only Jews, both Jews, you ask a question and I agree, and I just take it a bit farther. Both Jewish progressive groups and at large the left and Marxists failed to support Islamic resistance. This is a fact. They don't support the Taliban, and they don't support the Iraqi freedom fighters. They do not support the Hezbollah, and they failed to support Hamas that was democratically elected. What kind of leftists are they? I tell you what kind of leftists. They are leftists, normal leftists. Lacan, Jacques Lacan, the French psychoanalyst, says that, and I can definitely testify that he is correct, that making love is making love to yourself through the other. It's basically an extended form of masturbation. The left solidarity, the left understanding of solidarity is very much the same. We make love to ourselves on the expense of the Palestinians. It's pretty devastating. So we make scarves, we make badges, but we don't support the Hamas that was elected by the Palestinians. If we support the Palestinians, we have to support their choice. Think about it. However, the Free Gaza movement is the most refreshing news in that sense. And by the way, I don't enter the Palestinian internal politics. It's not. I'm definitely not the person to comment on it. But The Free Gaza movement said, we are going to Gaza. No, you're going to the Hamas. We are going to Gaza. There are 1.5 million in a siege. 80% of them suffer from malnutrition. And as it happened, the progressive Jewish groups were not on the flotilla. Now they say, oh, we have to come with a Jewish boat. And now I heard that they are going to do a Jewish boat. So somebody asked them, how is it that you are doing the Jewish boat? I say, because we do it because we want to help Israel. Great. I decided that if they do a Jewish boat, I'm going to take, I asked already, Rich Siegel, another proud self-hater from New York, and Paul Eisen, a friend of mine, a wonderful, proud self-hater from London, and we are going to go on a small dinghy. You know, this is the first time that I come public with it, so you have to be quick. You know, it will be the self-hater, proud self, PSF dinghy. The PSF mission for Palestine. Yeah. No. H, sorry, PSH, yeah. PSH. Wow, it's a bit acid, you know. PSH. Wow. A bit acidic. We can even come as acidic Jew. Now, you said they get away with it. I get away with it as well. One of the problems, as you probably realize, there is, or there was, a lot of pressure on me. They try to silence me. Even now in New York, when I was in New York, there was an attempt. There is a slightly pathetic jazz journalist who tried to tell the jazz listeners, you really think the jazz listener in this country is the Israeli lost tribe? You know, oh, you shouldn't listen to Gilad Atzmon. And like the Israelis, I don't stop. I go for it. And it's a big question. Why do I get away with it? And one of the reasons that I'm getting away with it is because the tide has changed. You understand what I'm saying here? We all see, the tide has changed not because of politicians, because humanity comes to realize what the Jewish state is all about. And the politicians will follow us. They are behind. They always like it from behind. Yeah.
I once asked an American woman what is her nationality, and she responded saying that her nationality is Jewish. So I tried to reason with her that would be not a nationality. Is that true?
Chaim Weizmann, an early Zionist who ended up being Israel's first president, and he probably, I think that he's the most sophisticated, actually, first Zionist, and he's the one that really carried the diplomacy that led to the erection of this monstrous entity, i.e. Israel. Chaim Weizmann is the person that led to the Balfour Declaration in 1917. In 1897, he said, there are no American Jews, British Jews, French Jews. There are Jews who live in America, Jews who live in Britain, Jews who live in Morocco, and so on. Jewishness is a tribal identity. especially secular ones. If you ask a religious Jew, he will tell you, an Orthodox Jew, an Neturei Karta, he will probably say, I'm American and I'm an Orthodox Jew. But if you ask a secular Jew, he would be confused. Because to be a Jew, I wrote a paper about it, that those who call themselves Jews are divided into three categories. Those who call themselves Jews because they really follow Judaism, this is fine. It's like Muslims. And if you ask a Muslim, what is your nationality? He will tell you, I'm American, I'm French. What is your religion? I'm Muslim. If you ask an Orthodox Jew, he says, I'm American, British, blah, blah, blah. Religion, I'm a Jew. So we have those who understand Judaism as their faith. Second category are those who are born Jewish, they are ethnically Jewish, but this is not a crime. You can't blame a person to be born a Jew. They live their life, regardless of their ethnicity. And we have the third category, those who are primarily Jewish. So, if you ask them what you are, then I'm a Jewish American. If you ask John Zone, what is he doing for a living, or what is he? I'm a Jewish saxophonist. What a strange concept. You wouldn't be a saxophonist to happen to be a Jew, I guess. I didn't ask him, we don't talk. 3 days after the massacre on the Mavi Marmara, Spain announced that it cancelled the participation of the Israeli delegation to the gay parade in Barcelona. I was confused. I have a few gay friends, and I called them. I told them, "What is it? Is it like the Olympic game for gays? And if I want to qualify, what do I have to do?" It's quite bizarre. What is it? And I tried to find out whether Britain is sending its best gays, and America. I never heard about it. I couldn't find anything. Luckily enough, 2 weeks later, I read a review of the wonderful performance of the Israeli gay team in New York Gay Parade. And they were informative enough in Ynet, it's the biggest Israeli paper, to say that, that Israel is actually the only country that send the gay team. So, to your answer, even before they go to bed, and they're primarily Jewish. Even before the sexual orientation. First I'm a Jew, then I'm It's unique. Now you ask as well, what do I have to say about nationalism? I don't have problem with nationalism. I tell you something sick and I get a lot of flack for it. On the way in, I've never been in this country in 4th of July, and I can't wait. I've never been, I don't know. On the way in, I saw in the plane there was kind of a film about the 4th of July, how you made your flag, fireworks. sausage, hot dogs. They even tell about to be careful of ants and bacterias. I'm ready. I'm ready. I can't wait. I don't mind. Patriotism. I support Palestinian nationalism. What is the problem with American nationalism? Or when it becomes a problem? Not when you eat hot dogs. When you celebrate your symptoms on the expense of others. What is the problem of Jewish nationalism? If they celebrate it on Mars, it won't be a problem. The problem is that they celebrate it on the expense of the Palestinian people. And if you won't stop them now, they will spend it, they will celebrate it on the expense of all of us. And by the way, they already celebrate it on the expense of all of us, because those amongst you who read my writing may come across my paper. Is it a credit crunch or a Zio punch? And you know, to save you reading 11 pages of my endless ranting, no, it's, you can protest if I like. What I'm saying there was Wolfowitz doctrine that leaked to the Times, to the New York Times, I think, in, 94 or 92? 92. A document that was written by Levy and Wolfowitz, a doctrine that was then evolved into policy, into the Bush doctrine, and Mr. Greenspan was there to divert the attention from this disastrous war by creating a boom. And for the first time until this war, a lot of wars in the West were financed by bankers, many times Jewish bankers. But this war, they found a way. Why to finance it by bankers? Why not to finance it by exploiting the poorest people in America? They didn't want credit crunch. They just wanted to divert the attention. The credit crunch is an accident. Why it is an accident? Again, because they cannot read history, they cannot think history. Because all they want is to stop us from revising. And they want to stop us from looking into their actions. But I won't stop.
So I think we'll take like 2 more questions, and then we'll set up for some live music. So.
Okay, so you seem to be pretty pessimistic about Israel's kind of ability to correct itself on its own. So I'm guessing you don't subscribe to the kind of view that we just kind of need to reach out to Israelis and try to find a common ground. That's not really your thing, right?
Definitely not.
Okay, so the kind of juxtaposition to that, which I'm assuming you uphold, is something that kind of regards the Israeli state and Israelis generally as kind of enemies to kind of the general gist of what the world's people needs. And you say this yourself, you say Israel is an imminent danger, worse than global warming. That's kind of a paraphrase of that. And, you know, I largely agree, actually. I mean, I'm part of a group that does support Hamas as part of a legitimate resistance group. But the question I have is, you know, if that's your view, if Israel is kind of the imminent danger, if it is kind of the main enemy of the kind of the struggle of the world's people, what kind of qualifications do you see for the few Israels that can be counted as part of, or the few Israelis and the few maybe Jewish people that can be counted as part of friends of the struggle of Palestinian peoples?
Just the last part of what is my view about what I didn't understand.
Okay, if we can assume that, you know, for the most part, Israel and Israelis are kind of an obstacle, and an obstacle more than a friend.
Yeah.
What kind of qualifications of the few Israelis and few Jewish people who might be friends of the Palestinians in the struggle?
Okay, this is a I'm very happy with this question. One of the reasons the Jews enjoyed a total hegemony within this discourse is because it is very convenient for us to say, as a Jew, I oppose, but it's really meaningless. So what? So what? It just proves that I'm a special human being. And what does it mean that if I'm not religious Jew? What does it mean that I do something as a Jew? That I had a chicken soup before? How was the borscht?
Fabulous.
Yeah, I saw borscht. Obviously I recognize it because, you know, but chicken soup, sorry, I've already started to speak Yiddish. Chicken soup and borscht is not a political argument. Now, I criticized a lot of them, not that many, the few actually, very eloquent voices that support the Palestinians. People who allow themselves to say, I'm saying it, I'm allowed to say it because my mother was in Auschwitz. And I can agree, you know, some of them are academics, and I thought, listen man, you're a professor, man, you're an academic. You have all the qualification, you don't need your mama. I don't think that Einstein stood up and say, I think that blah, 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 because my mother was a rabbi. No. Authentic, clever people speak their minds. Now, but there is a bigger problem. If I'm allowed to say what I say, because my mother was in Auschwitz, I exclude you. And I don't want to exclude you. I want to become a mass movement. I want each of you to allow yourself to say what you think. This is our only way. And I'll tell you something that it's crucial now. It's crucial. I have a problem with my entire approach. Because I talk about kindness and compassion. And as you probably noticed, I'm not very compassionate towards Israel and its Jewish lobbies. I'm just a proper Christian. I'm just a proud self-hating Jew. I'm working on it. But the best thing that we can do to help Jews and Israelis is to tell them halas. How do you translate halas? How do you translate to English?
Enough.
Enough. Enough. Bas. Enough. Why? So they realize that we see it all. One of the biggest problems within the Jewish political discourse is that they unfortunately interpret your especially, tolerance, they interpret it as your stupidity and weakness. They think that we don't see. And this is why they think that anti-Semitism is magmatic. No, it's not magmatic. You just keep quiet. You keep quiet longer and longer. And one day say, halas. So if we want to save them of themselves, we better start to talk.
I guess we do have two questions, so we can make it kind of quick, because I do want to get some music in here.
Thank you, and I do want to hear the music too, and I'm pleased that you can be with us. Your opinion about J Street's efforts, and if you do not feel that that's a positive direction, other suggestions that you have for the American Jewish community or any of us who are working for justice in this situation?
I'm absolutely sure that just the J Street, and this is something that I'm totally convinced as well, regardless of my criticism of progressive thinking, left and J Street, there are a lot of good people in all those organizations. I think the J Street, and I'm not a J Street expert, J Street is again an attempt to show that there are some good Jews. Say it to Lord. We are not all Wolfowitz. This is great, but this is an internal Jewish matter. This has nothing to do for the Palestinians. It is making love to yourself on the expense of the Palestinians. So if you really care about the Palestinians, and if you really want to, dismantle Jewish power that you may be associated with, you will be far more powerful when you say, sorry, but I do it as a human being rather than as a Jew. As I said, Chaim Weizmann said, first you are a Jew, then you are American. If you are on J Street, you say, first I am a Jew, then I'm a peace lover. No, I want you to be a peace lover first. I differentiate between Jewish Marxists and Marxist Jews. Marxist Jews are Marxists who happen to be of Jewish origin. It's absolutely correct, no problem at all. Jewish Marxists are people who are primarily nationalists, and then there are also socialists. We call it National Socialism. I think that we...
There's
sorry.
one more here.
I know Rich Siegel, and you should...
I had the most wonderful
Yes.
2 days, the best 2 days in my life with him.
You should
Best
have a
2
good
days.
time in the dinghy, except I don't know how you will take his piano. You can take your saxophone.
Sorry, say it again?
You can take your saxophone on the dinghy, but
Yeah.
I don't know how he's going to take his piano.
Maybe we should sit on the piano. We turn the piano into a dinghy.
Right.
Yeah.
Serious question. We all know about AIPAC. It's been here a long time,
Yeah.
controlling our Congress. But what we see now, so prevalent over and over again, is Israeli agents under all kinds of different banners, such as the son of Hamas, in our country, in America,
Yeah.
carrying out an agenda, which is really a hate agenda, an anti-Islamic agenda.
Yeah.
And maybe you have heard of, I don't know the name of the son of Hamas, but I'm sure you know about him.
I saw it. Let me tell you the truth. As a self-hater myself,
Yeah?
I cannot really oppose. You know, I understand that I'm an ex-Jew self-hater, and there are some Muslim actors. I believe in self-hater united. You know, it sounds like an English football team. But where do you play? I play with self-hater united. But there is something that you have to understand. I know exactly what. Sorry, you didn't finish.
Well, I'm almost there.
Yeah.
There's a Walid Shubat. He's well known back in your country, in the UK, and he goes to churches here selling the same program. It turns out that the son of Hamas has the son of a Israeli general is his handler. Walid Shubat was apparently trained by Israelis to go through churches. It seems that we have Colonel Gruber was just here working for the IDS at Denver University, and it goes on and on. We have them everywhere.
I have a wonderful,
what do we do?
I have a wonderful, and I think I have two things to say. There is a film, Jason, it's your project, Paradise Now.
I've shown it.
I'm sure. There is a film, I'm very embarrassed about it, but I didn't see it until a month ago. Go and see Paradise Now. Paradise Now, two Palestinians are preparing themselves for a suicidal mission. One of them is a son of a collaborator. Because I hope that you are going to see the film, I won't tell you how it ends. So what do I have to tell about? But what happened there? They're not so sure, maybe one of them is not so sure, but the son of the collaborator says, I don't have any other choice. When they turned my father into a collaborator, they assigned me into a suicidal mission. So the Israelis will have collaborators and they will do all their tricks, and in spite of all those tricks, we turn against them. We don't buy it. And this is the true meaning of this disastrous conflict. There is nothing they can do. Everything that they are going to do is a disastrous mistake. They lost contact with reality. We are dealing with a psychotic collective. However, there is something that I have, because we are all part of the peace movement, I guess. If there are Zionists in this room, they are very quiet. And I understand why. Because they look to Israel, you know, they don't take the risk. At the moment, it looks as if there is a growing rift between American administration and Israel. Some of you are very happy because you think, oh, America starts to get angry. In fact, I think that it is the other way around. I think that it is Israel that stands behind this rift. It is Israel that doesn't want America, and this is something that you have to bear in mind, because it's very frightening. I think that some elements within the Israeli government, such as Lieberman, do realize that if Israel wants to maintain its characteristics as Jews-only state, and if Israel wants to maintain its position as a nuclear superpower, they have to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians, which is what they are doing now in Jerusalem, in Sheikh Jarrah, and Silwan, and they have to nuke Iran. They know that they cannot do it with America in the background. So the Israelis, at least some elements, want now a complete split from America and the West. They think that they can manage it for 10 years. Now, this is a devastating news. And I want to say one more thing. If this would lead to an unbelievable tide of anti-Semitism, this is a disastrous news as well. Because where do you think American Jews would go to? They would go to Palestine. So I'm not a politician and I don't try to offer solutions. But what I'm trying to tell you, the only way to stop them and to make them think and to look in the mirror for the first time in their history. They never did it. In fact, early Zionists did it and they didn't like what they see. This is why they created Israel. They say, we will make a beautiful civilized Jew. Yeah, it's great. Thank you.